we have seen long-term storytelling in AEW. I think one of the better executions of long-term storytelling as of late has been the story of Daniel Garcia. Is he a pro wrestler? Is he a sports entertainer? Is he going to side with Danielson? Is he going to side with Jericho? Well, we had the third installment of Chris Jericho versus Bryan Danielson on Dynamite this week, this time for the Ring of Honor Championship. Chris Jericho is about to hit Bryan Danielson with the ROH Championship before Daniel Garcia comes out, takes the title from his hands, pushes Chris Jericho out of the way, but then hits Bryan Danielson with that title, and Chris Jericho eventually covers him for the victory. And a lot of people are saying, Daniel Garcia turns on Bryan Danielson and rejoins the Jericho Appreciation Society. But you look at his face and you look at his mannerisms, it doesn't look like Daniel Garcia is full on with Jericho Appreciation Society. It's more, yes, he turned on Bryan Danielson, but I think there's more to this story and another layer that's going to get added on with some follow-up in the coming weeks, where perhaps we get, dare I say, a triple threat match for the Ring of Honor Championship between Chris Jericho, Bryan Danielson, and a conflicted Daniel Garcia.
Whether you like it, you dislike it, this is one of the storylines that they're putting a lot of investment in. That's for sure. Are there things that I'm concerned about? Yeah, I mean, obviously I have concerns that Bryan Danielson took yet another pin last night, who is probably, when you look at the lay of the land in AEW, in my mind, you got Jon Moxley, you had CM Punk, Adam Cole is out with injury, I believe, still. Yep. And then I thought Bryan Danielson was going to be one of the top guys. I don't think Bryan Danielson's not a top guy, but he's losing a whole hell of a lot for somebody who is supposed to be a top guy.
Right.
And what is the point of all of this? It's all for the sake of getting Daniel Garcia over. I mean, at some point, are we?
Thing, though.
It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. But here's my problem with it. Okay. I was thinking about this because I was a guy that was never a big Sami Zayn guy. I never got it. I was like, there's nothing there. Ironically enough, I felt like he was generic, and I say it's ironic because he's literally El Generico, right? Mm-hmm. He has come from out of nowhere, but I think sometimes wrestling is weird because when a guy gets forced down your throat really fast, like it's Roman Reigns, it's, a guy like that who's going to get the rocket strapped to his ass and shot to the moon, and he's young and people are like, he's not ready and all this stuff, we're quick to point it out. When they put a guy on the back burner like a Sami Zayn or a Ricochet, somebody like that, we're critical of WWE and we say, they're wasting him, when in reality, sometimes you have to actually wait. You have to let... You're Italian, man. If you cook a quick sauce, is it going to be as good as the sauce that you let sit and cook and marinate and all the spices and everything come together? No. So What I mean by this is, in wrestling, sometimes the most important thing is the character aspect of it. That's the hardest part for people to get. I think sometimes people go up and down. They have big moments. They have small moments. They hit at peaks. You can look at Jungle Boy. I think that's a good example. He had one really good promo. We were like, okay, this is great. He may have arrived. He may be onto something. He's been kind of on the downturn. MJF is the exact opposite of that. He was on a rocket ship. He proved he can do it week in, week out. He's proven himself to be a top guy. Now, where I'm going with this is here. I think as fans, sometimes we say, okay, they're wasting somebody like a Sami Zayn. Well, maybe it's not they're wasting him. Maybe it's WWE knows, like the higher ups know, the people who have experience, like, let him find his way. Let's not rush it. Let's let him find his path. And with Sami Zayn, I was 100% wrong on him. Like, that guy can find his path. Now, that's what I worry about with Daniel Garcia. Because when I look at him, I see a guy that's, to most people, probably going to be considered undersized, good in the ring. But he's, like, I don't see, like, an it factor. And are they pushing this guy to the moon? Right? Is this all going to be to try and just force Daniel Garcia or even a Wheeler Yuta into a spot that they're not ready for, character-wise? Not saying they can't wrestle, not saying they're not beloved for their work rate, but when it comes time for him to hold that Ring of Honor title, which Tony Khan touched on this in his interview with Ariel Helwani, They're trying to get TV. They need a guy to hold that title that they can convince to get them on TV. If Daniel Garcia is going to be that guy that's going to be either Chris Jericho or a Bryan Danielson, is he going to have that character when it's time to carry that title? Because that's the hard part in wrestling. There's a million good wrestlers. So that's my point on this. They're pushing him and they're pushing him strong. Is it going to be worth it at the end of it? And I don't know. I haven't seen a character aspect of Daniel Garcia that makes me look at him and say, that's a guy. I could look at MJF any night and be like, absolutely, without hesitation.
You don't see that there's been improvement, though, with the character of Daniel Garcia through this whole thing, though? Because I feel like this whole storyline, you actually have seen him work a character. And this whole conflicted, yes, Bryan Danielson's my hero, but Chris Jericho's my mentor, and he got me TV time and big matches, and I won main events on AEW Dynamite because of the Jericho Appreciation Society. And you could see the conflict in his face. And, his promos, he gets a little bit more confident when he's on the mic now. I've definitely seen that at least in the last, say, 4 to 6 weeks.
I will compare it again. I will compare it to Sami Zayn. Okay. You saw the segment on Raw.
Yep.
Correct?
Yep.
Was there anybody else, including Roman Reigns, in that ring during that segment that stood out more so than him? Or was there anything more compelling this week in wrestling? Any segments that left you like remembering this other than Bray Wyatt's return? Or was that probably the thing that you were like, dude, Sammy's got it. Like there's something there.
For WWE, definitely. AEW might talk about the Hangman Page promo. And I do want to talk about that.
Okay, so let's draw that comparison then, because we'll go with AEW to AEW comparison, because I know people get upset. Oh, you're comparing WWE. Okay. Hangman Page, that segment, you could walk away from that segment and be like, Hangman Page pulled his weight in that. That's Jon Moxley, and that's a guy that's known to have good segments and good promos and everything else. But Hangman Page more than delivered in that. And you know what? I walk away from that being like, that's great. Now, with Daniel Garcia playing his part well, the facials, the being distraught, not knowing it, I get it. I'm not saying that it's not a compelling story. I'm not saying I don't get where they're going with it. I'm just saying, like, is it just like the guy in the right spot at the right time, or is it like him actually the guy that's being the compelling character? Jericho to me is the compelling guy in all of this. He's the storyteller. He's the puppet master. He's the guy that's going to go out and cut the promo that's going to make you want to watch next week and the week after. I haven't seen that from Daniel Garcia. I've seen the facials and I've seen all that other stuff that you just talked about. Can Daniel Garcia be that? Can he be a Chris Jericho? I don't know. That's my concern with this whole thing.
Right. No, I agree with you. I think time will tell on whether or not Garcia can develop a character that people can gravitate towards and be, I don't want to say Jericho level, because Jericho is a guy that has changed his character so many times and just adapts with the times. And when it comes to reinventing himself, he really is the GOAT, So I don't know if Garcia ever gets to that level. But even
isn't that the point? Isn't that enough right there to tell you, like, for the amount of investment that you're putting in this storyline, if you're Tony Khan and you have the slightest bit of doubt, or you're unsure that he can't do what Chris Jericho can do, is it worth it right now to have this guy on TV weekly and maybe the most prominent?
The problem is you have Chris Jericho in that storyline. And like I said, can reinvent himself and his character time and time and time again. That even if you have, like, say, a CM Punk or a Jon Moxley in the storyline, he's still the focal point in the storyline.
Yeah,
regardless.
I agree. Yeah.
So I think it's kind of unfair to say by having Garcia never getting to that level that you have your doubts of him at getting to that level at some point. You know what I'm saying? I just feel like you need a little patience. I've seen the improvements, and I think this probably is one of, if not the most compelling storyline in AEW right now.